Hello, I'm Michael Feeley, and today I'll be talking to Agnesia Agrella, or the founder of Simitize and a business architect. Good afternoon, Agnesia.
Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for the invite and really looking forward to chatting to you.
Oh no, my pleasure, my pleasure. So first of all, if you could tell viewers just exactly what it is that you do, just a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the business you are today.
Yes, thank you. So Semitize is short for monetizing your systems. So I am a systems person and a process person. And so I look at how the processes of an organization work. And I look at it from a holistic point of view. So I start off from the customer and I look, what is the customer wants? What is the organization does to satisfy that need? Now, obviously, there can be services, it can be a product, it can be anything that service, that organization is providing that customer. But then we want to look at how can that organization supply and satisfy that need of that customer in the best way. Now, people plays a very important role in executing processes. So I also work with a system of the people or the process that the people have to go through to actually work with the organization and execute those processes. So that is what a business architect is we look at the structure of the organization, what is the resources, and then how do we supply the customer what they want. And then I measure that loop. So I'm very strong on results and I'm very strong on measurement. I want to always see how are we doing against the needs of the customer.
Sure.
So that whole system loop of customer, business, and people is what I concentrate on.
Okay. So typically, how did the issues that you were tackling within organisations before we get to 2020, typically, what type of thing were you being brought in to help with? What type of issues were you being asked to try to help them resolve?
Well, I normally used to work with technology. So I was lucky of one of those people who started, my career when technology started. So I was one of those people who had my first PC way back when. So I'm giving away a little bit about my age. But I'm really excited about technology. So I was very excited when I started my career and I could actually learn how computers work, how technology work. And then obviously the internet came along. And so I normally go into organizations and help them to automate their processes using technology. And normally when we do that, people really get scared because when you come in and organizations talk about change, people are scared they're going to lose their jobs. But more importantly, what some people forget is that people are scared they're not going to be able to do the job. So technology scare a lot of people, and it doesn't really matter how old we are. Yes, our kids do grow up with technology at the moment, but give them a new technology that they've never used before, and you get the same reaction than what you will get from an older person is they're scared of that technology. And that is normal for an individual. So I normally used to work with that resistance. We call it resistance from the people to accept the technology. But I like to call it, it's more just the people being really afraid of not knowing how to do the work.
Okay. Well, fear's not a commodity we're in short supply of at the moment. As I said, 2020 has proved to be a fairly unprecedented year in terms of the impacts it's had on us all, the pandemic and subsequent lockdown and all the knock-on effects of that. So from that perspective, how has your work changed over the past 6 months, and what are the key issues that have arisen for organisations as a result of the pandemic and lockdown?
I think for me, the main thing that changes, like you say, everybody understands fear and everybody understands stress. So pre-COVID, a lot of big organizations will normally say that people are not stressed, that people are not fearful. So that was the common thing that I would get from managers, because they saw whenever you say that people were stressed or fearful, they will see that a bit as a negative and a criticism about their management style. Yeah. But now all of a sudden in COVID, the playing field is now level. Everybody knows what it was like to be pulled into a huge event that happened, and overnight we had to learn how to work from home, how to pivot our businesses, and how to deal with change that is enforced upon us that we don't have any control over. So that is normally the main thing that brings our bodies into a defense, is when we are forced to do something that we don't want to do. Our body's natural tendency is just to protect ourselves. So what we used to call resistance to change is really just the body protecting themselves. And we all understand what that is. And we're still going through it because a lot of people are still losing their jobs. A lot of people don't know how that is going to play out for them. And a lot of owners and business managers don't know how it's going to play. So for the first time as well, managers have to admit that they don't know. Pre-COVID, people would normally try and pretend that they know, although they don't know, because when you step into implementing a technology, and especially if the technology hasn't been used before, nobody knows. So, but managers sometimes think they have to have all the answers. But now we're in that COVID stage where we don't know. Nobody knows. We have to work it out ourselves, and we have to work it out together. So that is the big thing that has changed during COVID. We have got the let's call it the permission. We are also giving ourselves the permission to say we don't know.
Okay, so in that way we can view uncertainty as an opportunity rather than something to shy away from.
Absolutely. And that is where normally when you work with creatives, when you put them into uncertainty, they normally at their best because they know how to create. So the work that I do now with people is really to show them how do you overcome your fear and how do you turn that fear into opportunity and possibility. Because our bodies are absolutely amazing. And we have got a frontal lobe, which is part of our brain, that really comes up with decisions and solutions when we allow it to. But we have to turn down the volume of the stress first and allow the body to go via the brain to actually get to the logic and making up the decisions and the solutions for us. So normally when we get into that creative process, it's exciting. It is, you know, the stress levels are different, but you bring that excitement into it. And if you then work as a team and you get your people to start working together and see that opportunity and start working with each other's knowledge, that's where the creative is. That's where the real solutions are. And that is when you can normally turn your organization from really being in trouble into a place where it can be opportunity and you can save the jobs of your people and they can actually be part of that. So what I do currently is helping people to see how do we harness that energy into possibility and opportunity by teaching them how to regulate their emotions and specifically their fear.
Okay. Someone said to me recently that they thought the effect of the lockdown had been to accelerate technological changes within organisations that were probably going to happen anyway, but just not at the pace. For example, if someone was considering automation of a particular function, then they're likely to start to go full steam ahead with that, given the unlikelihood of having a human resource available to fulfill that function on site. So given that is the case, that the pace of technological change, which was already pretty fast to begin with and pretty intimidating for a lot of people, now that that's accelerated, what advice can you give people who find themselves in a situation where they're having to adapt to a new technological setup in their organisation simply to survive and continue in post?
You know, the main thing is to really give your people the skills to manage and regulate their emotions. Just like any other skill, if you have to learn how a certain computer works, you have to learn how to turn down that stress response. Because when we really get stressed and when the body goes into survival, and that's really just all stress is, it's the body thinking that there's a disaster going to happen and it's trying to protect us. It actually kicks in automatic responses and we just respond. Our body knows what to do. There's a lot of chemicals that flow into our body. And before we can even think, we've already reacted. But we have to teach people how to overcome. And when that push of a lot of chemicals go into your body, how you regulate that and how do you calm it down is a skill like any other skill. And nowadays, there's a lot of research being done by various neuroscientists and also by the HeartMath organization who now shows us the difference when people self-regulate and when they don't, and how they cope in stressful situations. And when you think about people who are in the our emergency services, like our NHS staff, and specifically paramedics, and even our military people, when they go into those situations, they have got the skills because they have been trained how to actually regulate their emotions. And that is the type of skills that is now becoming available for organizations, where you can actually teach your people how to perform at a certain level consistently, because they've got the same skills of what is applied by those emergency workers. And that is the things that is now becoming available through the organizations that I've mentioned. And technology is also helping us to measure when we are really doing those techniques very well. So you're also helping your staff to perform at a level where your organization will benefit. So the real benefit for any organization is to provide their people with those skills is that they will be more efficient and they will make better decisions. So for me, business is all about making the decisions that is the best for the organization at that time. And you mentioned technology and why people take so long to implement those technology. That is sometimes when people don't have all the information from what is best for the organization, but also a lot has got to do with the resistance from the people who don't want to change. So it's sometimes really difficult to get that technology in, because you have to work against your people who's resisting that change. And that is where the self-regulation tools really help, because when your people start seeing the solution and also their own way of how they can add value to the organization, they're more motivated and they are more wanting to come to work.
Okay. Now, what's the flip side of that? If someone was not to regulate the chemicals and the stresses that and then base decisions whilst they're in that kind of heightened state, then what are the typical consequences of that? What are the type of flawed decision making that you see under those circumstances?
I think the most common one is normally the effect that it has on our communication and our ability to communicate clearly. So you will first always see those type of communication or those decision ability coming through in our communication. So that is when we don't communicate clearly, when we're a bit frustrated, when we take it out around the people around us. And so that also affects the relationships in our teams. It reflects on how people get on with each other. And also when you sit in a group and in a meeting and you are presenting new ideas, and that person is already overwhelmed, and now you're asking them to make a decision, and all of those emotions come up, they will come from that ideas that's been put in front of them, from why it cannot work, why they don't want to do it, why they don't want to go with a team. And sometimes that's when the egos also start getting in the way. And then you start getting these power plays that happens in teams. Okay. But the main thing is it breaks that openness and communication, where the team structure starts falling apart. And when that happens, it's really difficult to get it back on track.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we've spoke a lot about organizations, about management and teams, but a lot of people in the last few weeks will have found themselves very suddenly out in the cold professionally. We're talking about high achievers who a few months ago couldn't see a cloud on the horizon, thought they were going to be earning great money in a great industry that seemed impervious to the challenges of the market, suddenly kind of wiped out. They don't have a job anymore. So for someone who's fallen so far so fast, have you got any advice for individuals that find themselves in that unfortunate position?
Yes. And I mean, for those individuals, what will happen is they will immediately go into survival. So their bodies will immediately push all those chemicals that I mentioned into the body, and they will have a heightened state. So the main thing that they will think about all the time is how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to support my family? Where am the money going to come from? And those thoughts will dominate their thinking. So they will also, because the way the body works, there will be a certain chemical that their body will crave. And so they will create more of those thoughts, and they will start spiraling out. Those thoughts might spiral out of control. So the best thing is to really find something that first of all grounds you. So if that's a place where you can go in nature, or if you can go and walk to do that. But then it's always to come back to your breathing. So really to take notice and just go and sit somewhere. And that's the main technique that we actually teach people as well, is how to breathe slower and how to breathe deeper. The main thing is to actually break that chemical emotion in the moment when it happens. So when that shock happens, is to try and remember, and it's not that easy, I know. I mean, these are very simple techniques, but I know it's the most difficult to do. Is in that moment to breathe slower and deeper. And that is where that old saying about, count to 10 or just take a breath is really the best advice you can give anybody. Yeah. And I know when you really stress, people don't want to hear it, because it sounds like, well, why is that really going to make a difference? And why is that important? Now, why it's important is because your heart rhythm will change. And the minute you start breathing deeper and slower, you will affect your frequency of your heart, which will then affect the way your brain works. And it will short circuit that short response channel which the body normally takes, which short circuits the area where we make decisions. It will slow it all down, and you will be able to access the area where you make decisions. So the best thing you can do is really to try and calm yourself down through deeper and slower breathing until you can think again. And that is really the best advice I can give somebody. That is what we teach. I know that, it's a technique that you have to learn and it takes some time. But over a period of time, the main thing is the longer you stay in a stress response, and that is what is so dangerous about COVID, is because it's going on for such a long time. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are not designed to be under such stress for such long periods of time. And that is why the techniques is a lot more important, and the skills are a lot more important. But there is a way. The body is amazing, and it will adjust itself and it will repair itself. So that's all possible. But it's always becoming aware, first of all, of when are you the most stressed and how do you react. So you have to observe yourself a little bit, and then it will become easier over time to remember to breathe. But that is the type of things that I do. So I do that online. So my business have now moved on completely online. So if people are really stressed and overwhelmed, they're welcome to reach out to me, and I can help them online, and I can help them to breathe in a way that will calm them down and will help them to be able to then think about, what is the next steps I have to do? Where do I, who do I know that can help me find another job? So then you can start thinking about what is your next steps. And as you then start doing those steps, that will help you to calm down and see new opportunities and possibilities.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking of as well, that some individuals maybe in their hearts, they truly want to have a total career change, a left turn into something that they've never done before, but the fear and uncertainty surrounding that would stop them from making any investigation of it. Is that typical among people, or what is the difference in people who do manage to make a pivot in their career to a totally different thing?
Yes, I mean, normally people who wants to do that are normally too scared, but then something will happen that maybe sometimes forces them into. So in the past, it was normally redundancies. When there's a restructure and there's a redundancy, people will take early retirement, or they made redundant, and then all of a sudden they now have the opportunity to make that decision. But I think during COVID, that has been that event to actually, for people, most people, to take stock, to say, well, what is important to me? How much time do I want to spend at what do I want to do? And maybe this is now time for me to do something that I really enjoy. And so there are lots of people who have taken training, who has looked at different options. But the main thing to remember as well is that everything is a skill that we learn, and we can learn anything. If we put our attention long enough and we do something long enough, we will get good at it. And so if we want to change a career, we just have to think about, what do I have to do? Who do I have to contact? Do I need a training? Do I need an internship? Or do I have to work for somebody for free for a while to just get the experience that I need? Then I can actually turn into whatever direction I want. And I think a lot of people have also realized that if you do something that you really enjoy, then it doesn't feel like work. And the effort you have to put in is like a joy rather than feeling unhappy about it. So why be in a job that you're not happy with if you now have the opportunity to say, well, there's so many people out of work. There's so many people who have to learn new skills. Why not me? And maybe I can do something that I really enjoy. And if you really look at it, there are people who make money out of just about any hobby you can think of. Luckily, we're all very different and we have got different interests. So if you really put your effort onto something that makes you happy, there's always a way to make money out of it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, just by means of rounding off and closing off today, to pivot back to organisations, lots of organisations will be returning to some form of normality at the moment, and perhaps getting people back to the office, but with a smaller team than they had before, everyone feeling under the type of stress that you did before. So in terms of the things that management teams in particular should be watching out for, the kind of red flags, the kind of stress signals that those guys should be watching out for, in order to perhaps involve someone like yourself in helping them resolve it. What are those kind of warning signs or red lights that they should be paying attention to?
The signs normally are our communication, how we communicate, is how we talk to each other. You know, have our tone of voice changes? Are we short-tempered? Are we frustrated? Do we make more comments where some people are not happy about it? It is the way we talk to each other, because that is where our stress shows up the most. But we do get three types of people. You know, you will get the fighter, the flighter, and the freezer. So it depends on what type of personality you have. So if you are the fighter, you will be more conflict orientated. So most probably you will be a bit more assertive or sometimes a bit more aggressive. Your people who's your flighters, they normally run away. So they might be more absent. They might not attend meetings. They might have all sorts of emergencies that they have to take care of. And then we've got the people who freeze, who normally has got a bit of a procrastination and they take longer to do things. So you have to watch out for those people who are doing things outside of their normal character. And that will be the signs where you can see, is there something I have to take care of? But then again, management also have to realize that they're human, that they have to actually look after themselves and be healthy too. And a lot of them actually had to now step up 3-4 times more, because all of a sudden then senior people were put on furlough and they all of a sudden had to do a lot of the detail work, which they haven't done for a long time. So they have to cope with all of that stresses. And normally they don't look at themselves and they don't think about themselves. The best way to make it safe for your organization to take on these skills is to lead by an example, is to do the things yourself. See the benefits, what it does for you first, and then you can guide your teams into taking on the skills and the new resources that's available to them. So a lot of people, just like children, we do what our parents do and we want to do what our parents do, and it's the same with management. We have to lead by example.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very, very much for your time today, Agnesia. It's been fantastic, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for your time. I loved it.
Tremendous. Thanks again. Bye now.
Bye.